When it comes to abandoned buildings, most people have chills. But not me. I waltz into that building like I own the place. It's the curious case of the cat that got him killed. There's just something so visceral that comes with going into the unknown, especially the unknown that has "Don't Touch" written all over it. Sit tight and get ready for this creepy ride. From one house that was full of rare reptiles to another that was full of drug lords. The underground pool cave. This beachfront hideout to the slain cocaine king Pablo Escobar is located in Tulum, Mexico, where the magnificent house now has 35 rooms. It started as a simple structure that only had 10 rooms and access to a beautiful beach full of palm trees. Now, in addition to the 35 luxury rooms, it also has a bar, 2 restaurants, a beachfront, event space, and Keith Haring-themed Yucatan cuisine is served with condiments from the in-house garden or from within the hotel's environs. Renovated by an art dealer in 2015 after 10 years of the house being abandoned, it's the perfect spot in the Caribbean for sunbathers and holiday goers. It has all the high-end facilities you would expect from a billionaire drug king like Escobar, 3 pools, a rooftop deck, as well as a steam room. Abandoned shark found. This scary-looking shark has been left behind in a wildlife park in Victoria, Canada, and has been in solitary in a formaldehyde tank on the grounds of a wildlife sanctuary for years. Thanks to some urban explorers who discovered it and uploaded the story on YouTube, the abandoned shark was discovered. The video got about 11 million views and people were eager to go see it live. Despite discouragement from the police, people still flocked to the place. The owners of the private land got tired of the unwanted attention, and the shark was eventually moved to Crystal World. Crystal World is an exhibition with minerals, fossils, jewelry and meteorites, and now a preserved white shark is on showcase for the whole world to see. A lost painting. Imagine going through your trash and landing on the proverbial gold in form of a torn-up painting that's said to be worth millions of dollars. This is not your daily occurrence, but a French man from Toulouse was the lucky one in 2014 when he discovered a lost painting by the renowned artist Caravaggio. Today, that painting would be worth a whopping $171 million. It was first authenticated by the auctioneer Marc Labarbe. It goes by the name Judith of Hall of Ferns, and it's 5 feet tall and 6 feet wide. It's said to have been painted in 1607 and shows a scene from the Book of Judith, where Judith seduces an army general in his tent in Wharton, Boluthia, before going on to cut off his head. The letters to the Duke of Mantua in 1607 also mention the painting. When Louis Feinstein, the art dealer, wrote his will in 1617, he made a mention of it, and so did Abraham from Antwerp when he wrote an inventory in 1617, proving that it was legitimate. Tiger found in the abandoned house in Houston. This young tiger was found by a random dude who went into his abandoned house to smoke some weed. He was met by a wild cat. Good thing it was in a cage. There's no idea how this animal got there or who put it there. The tiger was, however, in very pathetic living conditions where it was surrounded by its feces as well as metal bowls that were rusted, which were most likely used to supply its food. The food most likely was not enough. He was also 350 pounds heavy due to lack of exercise and being locked up in one place. The US community rescued it and took it to a wildlife sanctuary that is 3 acres where it can easily roam in the wild. When he arrived, the relief of being wild and free was evident. The initial trip was stressful, but eventually, on arrival, the payoff was perfect. Millions of vintage trading cards. In Detroit, another gang of explorers found a whole set of baseball, hockey and NASCAR cards in this abandoned warehouse. It was suspected that these cards could have been worth at least $1 million. One of the explorers revealed that he makes a living selling such cards. The thing is, taking and selling these cards would be illegal since they belong to the warehouse owner, whoever that was. The reality was the house hadn't been occupied in decades. They decided they were the official finders keepers and took the cards for themselves. In 2000, a T2016 Honus Wagner card broke the record by selling for $1,265,000 at an auction. In 2022, a 1952 Topps 311 Mickey Mantle baseball card sold for a ridiculous price of $12.6 million. It cost more than the Warren Diego Maradona jersey, which sold for $9.3 million cash. What outrageous figures will hit us for these cards in 2050? Maybe by then the league we'll be playing in will be $1 billion. 175 classic cars barn collection. If you're a car buff, this will excite you. Anytime a collection of classic cars is discovered, it's a wonder to the eyes. It doesn't matter if the cars are dusty or out of order. This then has to be one of the biggest car wonders in London. These cars had been forgotten in the warehouses for many years and multiple rows of old BMWs, Porsches, Mercedes-Benzes and Volkswagen. They had to be cleaned up and spruced up in readiness for the market. A white Viazon 300ZX Z31 was among them. It brought its vibe as a cool car. An old Mercedes 180 and 220 SE, a 350 SL, 500 SL and 280 SL alongside some dope BMWs like the BMW M5 E20H, which came out in 1985, and some 2002s and the first 6 Series, an E24. Some British cars in the mix included the Land Rover Defender, the Morris Minor, the Land Rover Lightweight, the MG Midget plus the Triumph Stag. The cars had a lot of bird droppings, not by design though. Those little birdies were very disrespectful. An abandoned World War II hideout. If you're claustrophobic, this is not your kind of discovery, but hey, stick around. It was a very tight underground tunnel that had been abandoned way back when it had formed part of the Napoleonic fortress. There was some interesting art once you went into town. The gates were also ancient. As the explorer navigates with the GoPro, it feels like a perfect video game where an enemy can lash out at any minute. There's a juvenile prison on the other side of the tunnel, so these explorers need to be careful they don't meet with guards and are mistaken for escapees. This fortress used to be a hideout for resistance fighters in France during World War II. The French resistance was the secret source that enabled Allies to move swiftly in France after the invasion of Normandy in 1944. There was a lot of intel about German Atlantic wall defences that Germany gave to the military originating from underground networks. This system also sabotaged the Nazi power grid transportation and communication networks. Just being down here takes a lot of guts. The abandoned home of Alphonse. My Alphonse has been dead for a long time, and sadly the cat sat on the bed waiting patiently for him to come home, yet he never did. We love cats because they're truly our best friends and they're great skills of self-cleaning. The love of cats did not start the other day. It dates back to the 1980s. In the US, cats became more popular than dogs, and this was mostly due to the invention of kitty litter in the middle of the 20th century. The litter sanitizes the smell of cat urine. As of 2021, most cat owners now keep cats indoors all the time or most of the time in the US and UK. A faithful cat is a must-have in your life. This cat must have been Mr. Alphonse's best friend. Abandoned French artist's mansion. He left behind over 1,000 paintings. The house is in tip-top condition even though it was abandoned for years. It belonged to an artist of French origin that was sold out to his work. He was a pro. The paintings he left behind tell a very intricate artistic story. Other than painting, there was a variety of art materials that could take several days, weeks, months to sort out. This was indeed a perfect place to live an artistic dream. Since its discovery, the works of art in this mansion might find their way to an exhibition or a gallery for many to enjoy. Saving fish from an abandoned pet store. This is quite sad. The poor pets were left to starve. Together with the fish, an emu was also found left behind looking pretty emaciated. The fish would be happier in a cleaner pond with fresh water. The authorities were informed about the abandoned fish pond. The pet store is a great idea and allows people to find a goldfish or a little birdie easily. Leaving the place to dilapidate is however unfair to the pets who would otherwise do well in the wild, tending to themselves. Man finds secret treasure in the attic. Here is yet another story about hidden treasure. Some of the treasure comes with a lot of money and other treasures have a sweet emotional story attached. Rudi Schlatter and his family had to leave their family in the Czech Republic after World War II. All the Czechs and Germans were kicked out by the government and had no option but to pack up and go. When Rudi went back to the house he'd grown up in 70 years ago, he remembered a story his father had shared when he was in his late 80s. He got in touch with Czech officials and went home, which was now a kindergarten. As a child, Rudi's dad showed him a secret route to their family secrets. In one of the wooden boards in the attic there was a piece of string, and on pulling a row of shelves would open, with Rudi's father's family heirlooms neatly laid out. Rudi was excited to see these things, which are now kept in a local museum since the Czech government has to keep anything that was left by the Germans after the war. Abandoned church filled with ghosts. You might not believe in ghosts, but if you decided today to visit the small town of Lukova in the Czech Republic, you might change your mind. In a little church known as St. George's Church, you'll find these strange white figures. The church was built in the 1400s and is on top of a hill and has a ghostly aura around it. Seeing the church has been there for decades, it became abandoned in the 1960s when the roof fell in during a funeral. Talk about a bad omen. The church was abandoned for years until local artist Jacob Hadrava made 32 ghosts in line with the church's history with ghosts. They were the size of ghosts and resemble human beings, and the models are seated in the church pews, making the entire place creepy. The statues are meant to symbolize the Sudeten Germans who lived in the area, such as Rudi Schlatter from the last topic. People from across the world travel far and wide to see these ghosts. Tourists have also contributed towards the fixing of the fallen roof. The church is only open on Sundays. You can't enter. In an eerie style, you can only get a sneak peek of the ghosts from the windows. A home with 110 rooms. This classical mansion in the Gilded Age is believed to be one of the few standings in the US. It was one of the most beautiful pieces of property in Pennsylvania. Due to its sad history, it fell into shambles and disrepair. It's the custodian of many secrets, from ornate interiors to hidden tunnels and the connection to the fallen Titanic. It's called Linwood Hall and was constructed between 1897 and 1900 for Peter Arrow and Brown Widner, an American businessman, art collector and investor in the Titanic, which sank in 1912. When it was built, it stood on a 480-acre estate in Elkins Park, Montgomery County. From 1900 to 1925, Widner and his family lived in this stately home. Widner died in the house in 1915 at 80 years old. He was sick for a long time and many thought he was heartbroken. His son George Widner should have gotten the property, but 3 years earlier a tragedy befell the family when, on a trip back home aboard the Titanic, George, his wife and his son died when the ship sank on its maiden trip in the North Atlantic Ocean. Abandoned funeral home with hearse and caskets. This funeral home first opened for business in 1989. It was about 4,000 square feet and had this one large room for preparing the bodies, a smaller room for visitors, a small chapel and a room to show off caskets, and in the years that it was opened it did pretty well. It was one of 3 in the area, and since the owner was formerly a politician who fought for the civil rights movement in the 1960s together with Martin Luther King Jr., he was also a reverend in addition to being a funeral director. When he developed health complications, he knew that his days of running the funerals and helping families would soon be over. By the end of 2017, the funeral home was closed and put up for sale. In 2022, it still stands abandoned and empty, waiting for its next owner. Letters from World War II found in a 125-year-old Bible. This is quite a relic of history. Letters written by soldiers during World War II were found in a Bible that was 125 years old. They were on a porch of a farmhouse in Georgia that was 140 years old. So, yes, do the maths. Back then, letter writing was the norm. These letters revealed quite a lot about the past. It's quite a miracle that the Bible and all its pages are still bound together. Can you imagine how many bulldozers came to such a location and turned things upside down in destruction? This Bible and the letters were so special, they withstood the test of time. Scary abandoned pet store bathroom. This find is on the scarier side of life, especially if you're an arachnophobe. Up in North Andover Petco in Boston, a box of venomous scorpions and spiders was found in a public bathroom. There were 6 different containers inside. Each container had 5 Asian forest scorpions and another had a Brazilian scorpion. The other 4 had a 6-eyed sand spider. The environmental police were called and took the box to a place in Beverly where exotic animals and insects are kept. In Massachusetts, where this took place, none of the venomous bugs were outlawed, and it would have been easy to give them to someone who could handle them. This would be safer than abandoning them. Imagine curious children finding them and deciding that they could be a good idea for a pet. Massive amount of endangered tortoises. In a little town in Madagascar, a strange foul smell was coming from this brick house. The neighbors were curious to find out what was happening in that house. When they called the police, lo and behold, they found scores of an endangered species of tortoise on the floor of the building, seemingly trapped. These tortoises were known as radiated tortoises, and only a small percentage are alive and become a target for thieves. The tortoise is eaten as a delicacy, even though it's not allowed. It's not allowed to keep them, yet the people in this abandoned house decided to do that exact thing. The police rescued the tortoises and restored them to their natural habitat. A few house rules: smash the subscribe button, ring the bell, and follow each conversation we have. Man finds a secret passage in 500-year-old home library. This man has found hidden passageways, a locked chest, and books that are several decades old. Freddie made this discovery in his 500-year-old family home in Sussex. The secret passageways were behind bookshelves. He suspects the passageway led to a church or nearby buildings. He posted videos of these findings on TikTok and Instagram. He mentioned that from photos from the 1800s there used to be a doorway.
In this photo taken in 1870, you can see double doors leading outside from the library.
But in the present day, the doorway was missing, and he decided to try to find it. The hidden room led to hallways, cobweb-filled rooms that were not used for decades, and he thought that maybe they were used by servants to move across from their houses to the main house. Back then, it was common to have such secret pathways, since servants were not allowed to use the official pathways. Would you like to explore an abandoned house, or have you explored an abandoned house before? What secret treasures, secrets and joys did you find? Let us know in the comments section.